Celtic State of Mind. I'm Paul John Dykes, and tonight I'm joined by Kevin McCluskey. We're here, of course, to talk about the goings on at Easter Road. It's Hibs versus Celtic. Kevin, how are you? How was your Christmas?
Hi, I'm very good. Thank you, Paul. Yeah, thanks for having us back on again. Christmas was lovely. Spent it down at my in-laws. Unfortunately, I had to miss the game against St Johnstone, but managed to sneakily catch as much of it as I could on the phone. So, all in all, good Christmas. How was yours? I
Yes,
haven't spoken to you since. So.
I know. It was good. Aye. Obviously, you've got one eye on the football on the Christmas Eve, of course, and as soon as it's out the way, you're then looking at the next game. It's as simple as that, isn't it? And obviously, Paddy's looking at the game after that. He's wanting to get the points tonight in Edinburgh, and then move on to Monday, and that's what it's all about. And then,
Monday. What happens on Monday?
well, it's obviously a year since the game at Celtic Park where Hatate really came to the fore, didn't he, last February, and he will be a point of discussion tonight because I was so impressed with the way that he adapted to a situation that it looked like a big issue. And Hatate made it no issue whatsoever. Frank Brennan actually comes in. We'll be bringing the team up. The team lineup will be brought up in just a second. Frank says Ange continues to show whose heads have gone, the two who heads have gone. I wonder whoever you could mean, Frank. That there's only ever one boss, and once he knows your head is gone and you only want to be elsewhere, then it's all over for you at Celtic Park. Well, who knows what you could mean there? Is it Giakoumakis? Is it Juranovic? Both on the bench tonight. We'll have a wee look at the team and then we'll discuss the lineup as well. So if you just, the way I was kind of looking at the tonight's lineup earlier on today, because obviously I was on with Kev, was we were looking at things like does Abada regain his place in the team, which he has done. I was also looking at Maeda. Does he retain his place from the weekend? And he has. So we'll look at the Celtic team first and foremost. In goals, of course, we've got Joe Hart with Hatate at right back, Carter, Vickers, Starfelt and Taylor. The midfield three of McGregor, O'Reilly and Moy. And up top, Abada, Maeda and Kyogo. So no place for Jota. Now, after the game against Aberdeen, Ange was talking about ringing the changes, wasn't he? And that's exactly what's happened. And since then, we have seen Jota dropping down to the subs bench. Sorry, after the game against Livingston, dropping down to the subs bench against St Johnstone. He's on the bench again tonight. What's your thoughts on that, Kev?
Yeah, I think that's just Ange doing an Ange, isn't it? He's ruthless and he's brutal, and we know that he can be. And you've got to support that decision because Jota, as great as a player as he is, as skillful a player as he is, he's got that ability where he can change a game in an instant. We've seen it so many times, but we've also seen more frequently, I think, in the last wee while, games where he's just not had the same influence. And he was waning a little bit before the World Cup break, I felt. And then the couple of games that we've come back since, he hasn't been on form, he hasn't hit the heights. The guys that have come in to replace him, with Jamesy Forrest came off the bench against Aberdeen in that famous game that me and you covered and said, why the hell is he bringing James Forrest on? And he sets up the winner. He had the impact in, 20 minutes that Jota didn't in the 70 that he was on. So going in current form, he doesn't deserve to be in the team.
Didn't we also say, Kev? Didn't we also say, prove to us that we never stop isn't a merchandising slogan?
We did indeed say that. I think so. One of us, not me, said it might even be a 1-0 win and we would settle for that.
Yep.
So, I do remember that game. Every single call I made was wrong, and I was happy to be wrong every single time. Thankfully, Ange wasn't wrong when he made that call. I think he's been right to take Jota out of the team because as good a player as he is, and we can wax lyrical about him, when he's not in his game, you can be a man down at times because he's not contributing much at times. And the guys that have come in have shown that I think they're looking to fight for a place in the starting team. Whereas maybe Jota thinks he deserves it through previous merit, but you've got to get that just on current form. And and the team that Ange picks is the one that he believes is good enough to win the game. And if you look at that front three and you go Abada, he's come on, he's changed a couple of games, influenced them well. Maeda is an Ange player, kind of guy you need for this sort of game, probably, that will work the Hibs defence. I think Kyogo is his number one centre forward. So it's a front three that can win us the game. And if Jota wants to, he can be the man that can come off the bench and influence it that way if we need him.
Yeah. No, you're right. And actually, when you look at Abada, he was a player that we spoke about earlier on today, Kevin and I. Ange isn't, he's absolutely no aversion to dropping star men, to dropping game changers, people that can win you the match, like Jota, like Abada. Abada's spent time on the bench. Kev was saying earlier on, it's almost like he can sometimes be seen or deemed to be a little bit harsh on Abada from time to time, and we spoke about him getting hooked at half-time against Real Madrid. But I always think that Abada has always come back. I think that he's always responded positively to that, and it's going to be interesting to see how Jota responds to being kind of out of favour at this moment in time, because I thought right up until probably the World Cup, I thought Jota was having a cracking season, Kev, and I don't think since the World Cup break he has shown the same kind of level of form. He's not been as impactful. However, you don't become a bad player overnight, and as you say, he's on the bench, and it gives that bench a strength. If it does get to that point, and we've seen it so often in recent seasons at Easter Road where it becomes really difficult to break them down, then Jota's the guy you're looking at on that bench, and there's a few other options which we'll discuss as well. If we're running through the team, first and foremost, Paddy Burns got the book for Christmas. I hope you enjoy it, Paddy. It was an absolute pleasure, a labour of love. It only took me 7 years, so hopefully you can flick through that and enjoy the photography as well as some of the words as well. And John Caletta comes in to tell us that he's sitting in nice and warm Egypt, and he's ready to watch the action. Where are you watching from this evening, ladies and gents? Let us know. And as always, if you haven't subscribed to the YouTube channel, remember to do that, because 2023 is going to be a massive year for A Celtic State of Mind. We are focusing entirely on creating exclusive Celtic content. So make sure that you subscribe to the channel, because we have got some huge plans for it. Joe Hart starts in goals. I just want to run through each of the selections tonight, Kevin, and we'll see what your thoughts are. 35 years of age now is Joe. This is his 79th appearance for Celtic, and he's already kept 33 clean sheets. Will he keep another? There's my question for you.
Yes, I think he will. and he'll do it tonight as well. Not just will he keep another in his career with Celtic, but he'll do it tonight.
That was quite an open-ended question now that you mention it. Yeah.
It was.
I'm pretty sure he will keep another clean sheet at some point.
I'm pretty sure he will.
What about tonight?
But tonight, I think he will tonight. I do. I know Hibs are a good team and they're at home. They scored 4 at the weekend against Livy, and they've got Kevin Nisbet back, who will be the biggest threat to us, I think. But I'm confident in the backline that's in front of Joe Hart, that they can keep Hibs out, they can keep Hibs at bay, and I think Carter Vickers and Starfelt back together, pretty much kind of touch wood and don't want to jinx anything, but they're a fairly rock solid defence. I'd like to think this will be another one of those games where we're on the front foot, taking it to Hibs more than them taking it to us, and I'd like to think we'll win it with a clean sheet. Yep.
You hope so. You do hope so. And by the way, we're not criticising the defence, because once we actually start working our way through it, Kev, you realise how impressive they have been. Patrick Harrell, welcome to the show, Patrick. I hope you're well. You're looking forward to the game, and you fancy a 4-0 win. I'd love that this evening. Final game of 2022.
Very nicely, yeah.
Absolutely. Hope you all had a great Christmas. Yes, let's stay in the Christmas spirit. Hail, hail, comrades. 100%. Stay in the Christmas spirit. It's the last game of the year, and then there's a small matter of a game at Ibrox just at the turn of the year. Now, at right back, Rio Hatate, I remember when he came in, and we knew that he had filled in at left back over in Japan. He's 25 now, is Rio, and tonight will mark his 45th appearance in a Celtic jersey. How impressed were you at the weekend? The way he adapted to playing at right back, and in one game, he matched the Celtic TV commentator right back, Tom Boyd's entire Celtic career total of 2 goals. How impressed were you?
Aye, that's an impressive stat, isn't it? Or is it? I don't know. Tom Boyd going forward was he wasn't renowned for his finishing. Good crosser of a ball if I mind right, but maybe not renowned for his finishing. But as I say, I missed the game itself, so I didn't get to see the full 90 minutes. But I've seen highlights of the game from the weekend. I've obviously seen Hatate's goals and his involvement in the general play. And I'm actually kicking myself for not suggesting him to be the right back during the Livy game when me and Lawrence were discussing it, because I think we were more thinking, is it Jens comes in and someone has to be that square peg in a round hole to get a defender into that position? Do you move Taylor across? Or I think there was a few other players, and I don't think either of us actually mentioned Hatate. And then once you see his performance from the weekend, you think, well, he was the obvious choice because he'd done it before on the left. He is right-footed. He's a midfield player, and the way that we play with that inverted fullback, it kind of suits a midfielder to drop back in there if you need an auxiliary right back to go in there, because he's coming in field most of the time anyway. And it plays to his strengths. It probably gives him a bit more space and freedom to get forward and do the things he wants to do. So, I probably wouldn't have him as my first choice right back because it's not his natural position. But as somebody that can drop in and fill in that place every now and again when you need him, he's certainly a good fallback option to have. And more than happy for him to take this next couple of games, even if it has to be at right back, because I think he's got what it takes to play that role in domestic football, at least for us.
Yeah, without a doubt. What I liked after the game, Ange was talking about the fact that Hatate had played right back and did so very effectively. And he was talking about how within the way that Celtic play, it's so fluid, Kevin, that Hatate will have found himself in positions that would mirror that of the positional sense of a right back. Therefore, he wouldn't feel uncomfortable there. And similarly, if the likes of Taylor or Ralston were to be moved into midfield, they, as similarly, would be pretty comfortable because they find themselves in these areas of the park on a regular basis. And I like the way that you explained that. It was almost like, right, let's get rid of the taboo here. It's a different position, but he's not going to be uncomfortable playing it. And obviously, what's happened tonight with Juranovic coming back in and sitting on the bench is Lawal, who could have replaced Hatate, had it all gone pear-shaped at right back, is dropped out of the squad, and Vata is sitting on the bench. And it would be tremendous to see Vata making his competitive debut tonight, even if it was for 10 minutes or so, Kevin.
Yeah, it would be. When you see a young boy getting his chance on the bench, you always will that he gets on. So, excuse me. So yeah, you're wanting us to go and stick a few past Hibs early doors and get the game won by the hour mark kind of thing. And then last 30, 20 minutes, that's when you give a young boy his chance to come on under kind of little pressure and see what he can do in a team that's thriving. But I think to go back to the last point as well, what you're saying about Ange and having that, being comfortable about playing players in, quote unquote, out of position. I think the way he's got us set up to play the game has made so many players more rounded players. Like you say that Taylor, who was before just a left back, could now slot into a kind of defensive midfield role if he had to, because he's more comfortable on the ball. You've got Hatate, who's a midfielder, can play right back. You've got O'Reilly, who's an attacking midfielder, comfortable to come back and play that number 6 defensive role. It's so impressive how now the players can kind of just rotate around, and you'll see it in games probably now. There's going to, hopefully, in my kind of ideal scenario of this, there's just going to be so much more creativity and fluid movement. And that's one of those things, can just bamboozle opponents by like, it's Taylor on the ball and he's on the right wing, but he knows what to do. He knows how to handle that position. We've seen him get there already from his left back role. So, you've just got to, again, get a little bit excited when you see things like that. A player moving out of position, what we consider to be out of position, and then thriving. And then you just think, we're maybe a better team than we sometimes give us credit for when you see these things happen.
Yeah, you're right, and I think also what Ange is showing us is that you can tear the rule book up. I mean, who's to say that one player could only fit into one position, Kevin? And when you look
Yeah.
through the squad, there's so much adaptability, versatility. You look at Callum McGregor getting injured. Who on earth is going to play in the holding midfield role? All right, we'll play Matt O'Reilly there. And he was tremendous when he played there. And I think that he's been a great example of it. Maeda can play left, right and centre. Abada, left, right and centre. Haksabanovic. And you look at the adaptability of the players that he's bringing in as well, able to play several positions. And I think that's going to be key to us moving forward as well, because if you're on form, and it doesn't mean that you're bringing in someone in from the cold, Kevin. You can just, as Hatate, he's oven ready. You just put him right back. Fantastic. Moy coming in fresh from a pretty decent World Cup, and I thought he was pretty impressive, other than being absolutely wasted for pace on one occasion, which would be much to the annoyance of John Hughes when you see just how slowly he was moving, John, because I know that pace, or his lack of, is one of the bugbears that you have for Big Moy. But other than that, I thought he had a really good game. Brian Murphy, I would take Gigi over Kyogo every day of the week. We had a really good discussion earlier on today with Kevin Graham, actually, and I was looking at some of the stats that Alan Morrison had been talking about on social media in relation to that, and the fact that his conversion rate is a lot better than we maybe expected in relation to people thinking that he's missing loads and loads of chances, Kevin. And in actual fact, his conversion rate is better than that of Odsonne Edouard during his time at Celtic, who is often lauded as being a very talented forward player who left for 14 million quid to the Premiership. And I think that when you look at Kyogo and his performance at the weekend there can be no argument at this moment in time, be it through circumstance or otherwise, that Kyogo has to get picked first before Giakoumakis. Yes, Giakoumakis isn't getting the half hour or the 35 minutes to try and make an impression. His game time is limited at the moment, Kevin. But how could you drop Kyogo at this moment in time?
It's a tough one, and this is a podcast in itself. It's an hour-long podcast to discuss the merits of those two and who plays and who shouldn't. Kyogo plays because he's Ange's number one centre forward. He fits the way Ange wants to play a lot better than Giakoumakis does. Giakoumakis is a player that deserves to get more minutes than he's getting just now, because 5, 10, 15 minutes here or there isn't going to do him any good. But I think when it comes to Kyogo, it's there's a little bit about it's maybe it's the type of chances he misses, or it's the time in the game when he's missing chances, or just how a game is going. Because we say, to go back to the Aberdeen game, he misses that big chance on about the hour mark, I think it is. Excuse me. And it's 0-0, and he's got to score that. Because if he scores that, he calms all the nerves and we go on and win that game 2 or 3-0. But he misses it, and it's probably more as, from the fans' perspective, you've got that little niggle in the back of your mind that goes, if Aberdeen go down the park and score in the next 5 minutes, they'll either win this game 1-0, or we'll fight and we'll draw it 1-1, and we'll look back and that miss has been massive. And I think it's those kind of moments that maybe that let Kyogo down. But he's not a bad player. He's a great striker. He's got the potential to be a great striker. I was looking at some of the stats as well, and I think he's got the best conversion rate in the league, and he's got the highest expected goals or differential between goals scored and expected goals. Stats-wise, he's leading the charts. And as I say, he fits the way that Ange wants to play. He is clinical in front of goal, but I still think at times he's not clinical enough for what we expect as fans. But I'd still 9 times out of 10 starting before Giakoumakis. And it's not a slight on Giakoumakis at all, because I think he's a very good penalty box striker. I think there are games that will suit him better than they suit Kyogo. But as a starting striker, and for us wanting to impose our way and our style of play on every game that we play, it kind of has to be Kyogo or a Kyogo type striker that starts. So if we can if the striker we sign in January or the summer is an improvement on Kyogo, but similar type of player, maybe a bit more physical, maybe a bit more clinical, then it goes new boy Kyogo, Giakoumakis. But as good as Giakoumakis is at the moment, he doesn't get in ahead of Kyogo.
I'd agree
The
with
only
that.
way he gets in, the only way he gets in is that he must score pretty much every chance he gets when he comes on, and he's got to look interested and up for it. And I think Frank's comment right at the start about players with their heads going, he might be one whose head has, because he's feeling that he's not getting enough minutes in the park. But then again, you cannot take out your number one striker just because he hasn't scored in one game, or he's gone a game and a half without a goal.
Yeah.
Kyogo's goals to game, goals to minutes is the leading in the league, and there's a reason for that. He is the best striker we've got. We just want more from him, But that's natural as fans. You want him to score every chance he gets.
Yeah, 34 goals in 56 games plus 6 assists, so involved in 40 goals in 56 games. It's quite, in basic stats. I mean, we're not getting into conversion rates, minutes on the park, etc. With these basic stats. However, I think also that you've got to look at the way that Ange has managed this situation. So on the one hand, Kevin, you've got Giakoumakis kicking his heels on the bench. I loved Giakoumakis' attitude last season, where he came out and he basically said, we've got the best players, we've got the best squad. And some people were saying it was arrogant. I just loved the self-belief. But what we're seeing now is maybe, as you say, or as Frank has alluded to, that not being the case, and the self-belief maybe isn't there. But, he's coming on for 10, 15 minutes and he isn't making that impact. So he's not going to, if his head's turned, he's not going to turn anybody else's head unless he starts scoring goals. And then in Kyogo, what you've got is a player who I've seen criticism that he's not scoring in the big games. Well, tonight's a big game as far as I'm concerned. But I think what people mean is, games against Rangers, games in Europe. So he's still got that to tick off. But hey, by the way, we've got a game on the 2nd that could put all that right. Patrick Harold, you're back in. You reckon that Jota is wrapped in cotton wool until Monday? Last 10 if we need him. Well, see, this is the thing, right? Because if, for example, Maeda goes out tonight and plays an absolute stormer of a game, it's going to be difficult to drop him against Rangers. So it's a nice dilemma for Ange to have, but I would understand the thinking behind it. And Brian Murphy clearly,
I don't think Ange picks a team for this game with Monday in mind. I don't think he's got Jota on ice or in cotton wool. I think Jota's out because he's not been playing well enough to get a game today.
I'd agree with that.
For me, it's as simple as that. And if Maeda has a stormer tonight, he may or may not make the team on Monday. It all just depends on how Ange wants to line up.
Yeah.
It really doesn't matter.
Because Abada was probably the best player on the pitch against Livingston. And then, he doesn't start in the following game. This here, Brian, you've been looking at my notes here. Will O'Reilly ever score? Because I think over the piece, O'Reilly's had a very, very good season. Obviously, as we said before, he had to adapt by moving back a wee bit. Since McGregor's come back, Kevin, have you been impressed with the new freedom that O'Reilly seems to have? He was involved in just about everything there against St Johnstone. But this season, the one thing that's been missing is the goals. He's not scoring enough. I mean, there will come a point where that will be looked upon as the difference between being a very good player and an exceptional talent, because you need to score the goals from in the midfield as well, particularly when you're playing in more of an advanced role.
Yeah, I'm one of those ones, and I think I'm in the same boat as Brian on this one, where I'm permanently impressed by O'Reilly and what he does. I've yet to see him have a particularly bad game for us. I know he's had a few games it's not been at his same standards, but generally I think he plays to a really high standard for us, and he's key to how we play. The only thing he has been missing, or that has been missing from his game this season, is goals, and everyone's highlighted that. But you know with Ange as well, that when he signs the next midfielder that he wants, and you then have 4 kind of first team centre midfielders going for 3 places, O'Reilly could be the one that ends up dropping out, because it's that one metric of not scoring enough goals that takes him out of the team. And it'll not be for any other reason. It'll not be because he's kind of deserved to come out by poor performances. It would just be, we're doing a head-to-head. This is the one thing that you're behind on, and we need to get someone else in. So it's probably a key for him as well that he starts to score. And I'm sure he will. It might not be tonight. I've already gone out and said that Joe Hart's going to keep a clean sheet tonight. I'm not going to put too many predictions out in the line that O'Reilly's going to get his first goal tonight, but go and prove me wrong. But he will score before the season's out, and he'll probably be that kind of player that once he gets his first, he'll hit 2 or 3, in pretty quick succession, and he'll start flying again.
Yeah, I think, it's one of the areas of his game that certainly wasn't a concern last season. And it's only, since looking at his figures this campaign that I'm thinking to myself that could well become an issue. You really need to be chipping in from the midfield, particularly in these tight games where it's deadlocked. I'm looking at the bench as well, and Jota, I'm not surprised because he's not shown enough form. Giakoumakis, the same. Abelgar's back in though, and we were talking about him earlier today. We were talking about the fact that there's maybe 3 defensive midfield players at the club where it's not really worked out for them, right? And he was one of them, Ideguchi and McCarthy being the other 2. And he just appears on the bench tonight. And that was after the talk of his loan deal being ripped up, him being sent back to his parent club early, us being, linked elsewhere to yet another Japanese import. And then Ange, just throws him back in on the bench. He's a player that I think, I was talking about second half impact, and what I meant by that is second half of the season. And there was 3 players in my thoughts at that point. It was Bernabe, Abelgar and Haksabanovic. And of the 3, Haksabanovic would be far and away the most likely to make an impact in the second half of the season. And I don't change my view on that. When I seen the rumours that Abelgar would go back, I was pretty disappointed because I think there's a player there. We don't know what's going on behind the scenes. Are you surprised to see him on the bench tonight?
Yeah, that's an absolute curveball for me to see him on the bench. Excuse me. I guess he's there because Turnbull's suspended and there's maybe no another midfielder that he wants to put on the bench. Why not stick Lawal on the bench as well? Give him that opportunity to be involved in the first team again. But yeah, it was a surprise, especially when you've seen everything that's come out in the last week or so, that we're thinking about terminating his loan deal and he's going to go back. And the fact that he's barely kicked a ball for us all season, when we've had we've had McGregor out injured, and what we've done then is, like we've said before, we've taken O'Reilly and we've put him out of position almost and watched him thrive, but he's gone out there rather than bringing in the more natural number 6 of Abelgard and putting him in the team.
Yeah.
So when I actually read the report that we're thinking about terminating his deal, I wasn't all that surprised, because I'm thinking, like, and just seeing him every single day in training. So whether it's a fitness thing, and if it is, he should be up to speed by now, because Haksabanovic came in with the same kind of no pre-season behind him and got up to fitness a lot quicker. So it shouldn't be fitness anymore. If there's been niggling injuries, surely again they should be getting cleared up by now. He's obviously not doing enough in training to merit getting in the team, getting in the match day squad. So how much of a loss would he really be if he goes? But I do share the view as well that there's a good player in there. And I think it was probably Alan Morrison that's put this one out as well, that his recoveries, ball recovery, is exceptionally high and very good. That's his key strength in his game. But then for me, I find that when he gets the ball, he doesn't really know what to do with it. And my impressions of him in the few games we've seen is that he's a young Tommy Gravison. He's a Tommy Gravison with hair. When he gets the ball, he just doesn't know what to do with it. Gravison would kind of charge forward and do stuff. Abelgard seems to stand in one place and throw his arms around and not really do very much with it. But I do think there's a player in there. For me, I don't think he's a player for the way we like to play, but there is a player in there. And maybe I'm completely wrong again. And come the second half of the season, when he's fully fit, he will become a big player. But he's probably had his chance to get in the team with McGregor being out, and it's not happened for him. So
very telling.
Be disappointed to see him go and replace him with someone else, even if it was just another short-term loan from January through to the end of the season, to someone else that would give you a fresh impetus even in that position.
Yeah, well, there has been talk of Tomoki Iwata, who Ange knows well, having signed him previously in Japan, with a loan to a proposed 860 grand move permanent after that, very similar to the Daisen Maeda move. So it could well be in the plans that a couple will leave the building in January to make way for him. As we approach kick-off, I hope that everybody is able to enjoy the game. Paul Dyatt one last wee query coming through: is Juranovic carrying an injury or just not match sharp? Well, Tom Boyd made the point the other night there that he was injured. In fact, it was against St Johnstone. It was against St Johnstone that he was injured. So he may well have had a knock, but I don't think
he missed the third, fourth place playoff with an injury, I think.
Yeah.
So he's maybe still feeling that a little bit.
Yeah, absolutely. So JJ, will we see him tonight? Will we see a goal from Matt O'Reilly, and will we see a debut for Rudi Vata's son Rocco? Let's hope so. Let's get to the action. Thanks everybody for getting involved. If you haven't done so already, get subscribing to the channel. Acsom exclusive Celtic content throughout 2023. All that's left for me to say is enjoy the game, and thank you to Kevin McCluskey for joining me on a Celtic